But we also know that the global economic order is being reshaped. And in that sense, becoming closer to Europe, which is a 450 million people market, is an important and strategic decision on the part of the Canadian government.
Canada's quiet shift away from America, a new strategy is emerging. For decades, Canada's economic future seemed relatively simple. No matter which government was in power, no matter what challenges emerged around the world, one reality remained constant. The United States was Canada's largest customer, closest ally, and most important economic partner. But what if that assumption is beginning to change? What if Canadian leaders are quietly preparing for a future where relying too heavily on a single partner no longer feels safe? That may sound dramatic, yet comments made recently by Canadian officials suggest something important may be happening behind the scenes. Not a sudden break with Washington, not a major diplomatic dispute, but something potentially more significant, a long-term shift in how Canada views its place in a rapidly changing world. And if that's true, then what we're witnessing today may be the early stages of one of Canada's most important strategic adjustments in decades. When government officials recently spoke about strengthening ties with Europe, the comments initially sounded familiar. Politicians often discuss international partnerships. Trade agreements are negotiated all the time. Diplomatic meetings happen every week. But if you listen carefully, there was a recurring theme that kept appearing throughout the discussion. Stability, trust, reliability. Those words may not sound particularly exciting, but in today's global economy, they carry enormous significance. Because the world that Canada built its economic strategy around is changing. Over the past several years, businesses and governments have experienced one disruption after another. Global supply chains were thrown into chaos. Shipping costs surged. Trade disputes intensified. Major economies increasingly began prioritizing domestic industries and national security concerns. As a result, many countries started asking difficult questions. How dependent are we on a single market? What happens if trade relationships become less predictable? And how do we protect our industries in an increasingly uncertain world? Those questions are not unique to Canada. But Canada's situation is particularly interesting because of how deeply connected its economy is to the United States. Every year, hundreds of billions of dollars in goods cross the Canada-US border. Millions of jobs depend on that relationship. Entire industries have been built around easy access to American consumers. For generations, that arrangement made perfect sense. The United States offered a massive market right next door. Geography, culture, and economic integration created one of the closest trading relationships in the world. Yet, even strong relationships can face challenges. Recent years have demonstrated that trade policies can change quickly. Tariffs can appear unexpectedly. Political priorities can shift. Businesses that once assumed stability can suddenly find themselves dealing with uncertainty. And uncertainty is often more difficult for businesses than bad news. Companies can adapt to higher costs. They can adjust to regulations. They can respond to competition. But uncertainty makes planning much harder. That is one reason today's discussion about Europe matters. Because Europe represents something many businesses value deeply: predictability. The European Union is home to approximately 450 million consumers. It represents one of the largest economic blocs in the world. Its market is larger than the population of the United States, and its demand for industrial products, advanced technologies, and critical resources continues to grow. For Canadian policymakers, that creates opportunity. But this conversation appears to go beyond simply finding new customers. The industries being highlighted reveal a much larger strategy. Consider the sectors that were repeatedly mentioned: aluminum, aerospace, defense, artificial intelligence. These are not random industries. Governments around the world increasingly view these sectors as strategically important. Defense spending is rising across many countries. Artificial intelligence is transforming industries at remarkable speed. Aerospace remains critical for innovation and advanced manufacturing. And aluminum has become increasingly important for everything from transportation to defense production.